Good morning. This is College Football 134 live on the Covers YouTube channel for the last Saturday morning of the 2024 season. That is Andrew Caley. I am Douglas Farmer. Welcome to Championship Saturday, Andrew.
We made it. I can't believe they let us have the show all year long. Thank you. Thank everybody in the chat. This has been awesome. Hopefully they allow us to come back next year, but we're not done. We've got conference championship week. Obviously, we've got tons of bowls and the playoffs. You're right. This is our last Saturday, but we won't be our last time we hear that music this season, I'm sure, because I need more of that music. I can't get enough of this.
Near the last time.
Yeah.
We have a full December schedule already planned out between the three of us, and that is something we will reference throughout the show as a reminder to everybody. But for now, we should focus on today. We should focus a little bit on last night. I went 1-1 on my hefty future bets last night. I also went 1-1 on my Tuesday bets. You went 1-0 on your Tuesday bets last night. We're already off to a winning start in this final week.
Yeah, no sweat at all from Darian Mensah there, throwing that last-minute meaningless touchdown for Tulane. Never a doubt, buddy, never a doubt. But we cashed it, plus 165. We'll take that. That's a good way to start the week.
As we charge forward, let's remind everyone, like this video, subscribe to the Covers YouTube channel. Then you'll find College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms. Subscribe there as well. As Andrew already mentioned, we have shows planned for all of bowl season, beginning with our playoff reaction and early leans this coming Tuesday. That's not going to be on YouTube. That will only be on the podcast feeds. That's why you need to be subscribed there as well. Anyway, Andrew, let's talk about some games.
Let's do
it. With only 6 games today, we are going to be methodical. We are going to go through each and every one as we move toward our first 12-team playoff bracket. So let's start with Montana as a 21.5-point underdog. It's I kid. Iowa State versus Arizona State. That is Arizona State favored by 1 or 1.5, depending where you look. Total of 50.5. That's the nooner on ABC. We're finally going to find out which Big 12 team advances to the first 12-team playoff, because we have, at this point, I didn't do this ahead of time. We have considered Utah, BYU, Kansas State, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona. I think counting today's Arizona State, Iowa State, we've genuinely considered 6 full teams as Big 12 champions this year.
Well, there were 9 teams still eligible to play in this game just last week. So that tells you a little bit about the state of the Big 12 this season. So I have a question for you right off the bat.
Usually I'm the one catching you off guard.
Is Matt Campbell James Franklin light?
Matt Campbell. No, because Matt Campbell hasn't failed. Matt Campbell hasn't been in enough big games to fail enough in big games to be slandered in comparison to big game James.
But it isn't like you could make the same statement. That's just because Penn State has more regular season big games than Iowa State does. Fair enough.
And also, let's give some credit where credit is due. Iowa State won 10 games for the first time in program history. Matt Campbell is ahead of expectations. You have to look at coaches in comparison to what a program does long-term. It's why I so often praise Chris Creighton at Eastern Michigan. You didn't think we were going to have a live show, and I wouldn't get some Eastern Michigan praise in here, did you? Come on, give me some credit. It's why you have to recognize those coaches. Matt Campbell has brought Iowa State to a level that was never anticipated or understood in Ames, Iowa before.
I disagree, because I was all in on his Iowa State team with Brock Purdy and Breece Hall when they were both seniors, and they SHIT the bed against Oklahoma that season, and they should have won that game. They did not. And anyways, I've had a bit of a grudge, and I've always been like, I haven't been able to get behind Brock Purdy as the quarterback of the 49ers because he let me down so bad in that senior season that it's been tough.
You are missing the forest for the trees, focusing on one season when I'm really referencing program heights under Matt Campbell. Let's discuss this possible Big 12 championship for the Cyclones. They gain a break today in that Arizona State star receiver Jordan Tyson is injured. I know most people hear Arizona State and think only Cam Scatabo, but in their 5-game winning streak to reach the Big 12 championship game, Jordan Tyson has averaged 8.8 catches for 104.8 yards per game. Their number 2 receiver in this 5-game winning streak, 2.8 catches per game, 29.8 yards. This is a huge drop-off that, to me, really gives me some inclinations to fade the Sun Devils in this moment.
I think that Sam Leavitt is good enough to overcome. Yeah, you're losing your top wideout, but he's been really, really smart with the football, particularly over the last 7 weeks. Like, he's only thrown 3 picks over that time. You still have Scatabo, and he is going to be the focus of this Iowa State defense, which has had a lot of linebacker injuries this year, and as a result, have not been very good at stopping the run. I think they rank 84th in defensive success rate against the rush this season. And so that's not a huge in explosive plays, but that's what Scatabo does, right? Scatabo's the guy that like takes it away from you chunk after chunk sort of thing. He's going to wear you out, and they're going to have to try to stop him at some point. And Leavitt has been accurate enough with the football that he can still take advantage of that. In fact, let's get a best bet on the board right now for everybody.
We are 6 minutes into the show. Yes, we should.
So let's get a best bet. I'm going Sam Leavitt. Over 1.5 touchdown passes. You can get that at plus 140 over at Bet365. Like I said, in the last 7 games, 1,589 yards, 18 touchdowns compared to those just 3 picks. He's had a multiple touchdown game 5 times, while Iowa State has allowed multiple touchdown passes in 3 of their last 5 games, including last week to Avery Johnson, who we've talked about many times. I do not believe in very much as a passing quarterback. And it's all about Scatabo. I think Scatabo will set all of this up for Leavitt, and even with the injury there, I think Leavitt will be able to do enough and take advantage of that focus on Scatabo and hit this bet for us here today.
The encouraging part of that, I'm the one who came on here and was talking about Jordan Tyson's injury. The encouraging part of that for you is that Arizona State's offense ranks number 16 in the country at 53.2% quality possession rate. Even with, I'm doubtful they have massive passing yardage, but they're going to have red zone opportunities.
Correct.
And that sets you up for value. Now, that said, Iowa State limits those pretty well. And I think Iowa State is going to be able to key in on Cam Scatabo. And yes, I have a best bet here as well. And that's me taking Iowa State plus 1.5.
Ooh.
It's a long week, and you know that I'm putting out picks by Sunday morning. I not regrettably, maybe I'm going to end up looking good, had only the Iowa State money line in my best bets column. And the more I thought about it, 2-point conversion theory in title games makes me want the spread even more than the money line. You're losing 10 or 15 cents, but consider if Iowa State's down 7, scores a touchdown. In stakes like this, it is even more likely they go for 2. And in that situation, Iowa State loses by 1 or wins by 1. Or Arizona State's down a touchdown, scores to get within 1, goes for 2. Either loses by 1 point or wins by 1 point. In both those situations, Iowa State covers the spread. So I like the Iowa State plus 1.5 even more than the best bet money line play that was in my column. That's a mistake that I made this week that I have to live with. That's why we keep pushing out content all week long. Iowa State plus 1.5. I think they're going to be able to key in on Cam Scatabo and make life a little more uncomfortable for Arizona State's offense across the whole game.
I disagree. I'm not gonna fade you on this or fight you on it, but I think Arizona State's going to be the Big 12 champion. So there's my hot take right there.
Well, hey, all of these things can be true. Iowa State's going to lose by 1. And
lose by
2
1.
passing touchdowns, and Arizona State will be the Big 12 champion. Hey, unrelated, but we do pride ourselves on, we are College Football 134. We discuss all of college football. There's a little bit of chaotic college football news coming out of the Big 12. I know you're at least vaguely aware that Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy are playing some form of the game of chicken after this 0-9 Big 12 season. What a debacle. Oklahoma State wants Mike Gundy to sign a restructured contract and have a little bit less autonomy with his assistants. Mike Gundy wants his full $25 million. Oklahoma State is threatening to fire him for cause. I am curious for your quickest reaction on this encouraging situation in Stillwater.
I don't know what to think. Like, I think we're coming to an era where coaches are going to have to come to the realization that maybe there's a time where players get paid more than them. Like, that's just the future I think we're heading to right now. And a lot of these coaches who have been tenured, like Mike Gundy, and been around forever, are not going to like the idea of their players making more money than them. But if they want to get the Oklahoma State needs a quarterback and they want part of Mike Gundy's budget to go do that, and he's not going to do it, they might try to find someone else who will.
I agree with you in theory. I don't know that day's going to come that players are being paid more than coaches, but the players are certainly cutting into the coaches' salaries, as they should. We have $10 million a year coaches, and players should get a larger cut of that. And Mike Gundy, tough break. Mr. Gerg does ask
what cause?
This is going to shock. I personal news that is going to shock everybody who has listened to us all season. I'm not a lawyer. So I am not going to be offering what cause, but that is certainly is 0-9 cause. I don't think so. In fact, I know it's not.
The dumpster fire of this season might be the cause.
All right, let's get back to games. We also have a nooner in the MAC. Action concludes with Ohio versus Miami of Ohio, 12 Eastern on ESPN. This is in Detroit. And last I looked, I forgot to confirm this number this morning. Miami of Ohio is indeed a 2.5-point favorite, total of 44. If you're looking around, 44.5. I lean Miami of Ohio. It ended up in my best bets column, Miami of Ohio, in no small part because I think that 30-20 Miami of Ohio over Ohio game in mid-October was even more lopsided. Miami of Ohio was up 30-6 with 6 minutes remaining. But our show outline has me curious what you're up to.
Well, I was out of town this week. I'm happy to be home. And I actually read more of your work this week than normal because I was feeling a little disconnected. So I was like, I had to see what Doug is writing. So I know that you took Miami of Ohio on the money line. So we're going to have one more classic Douglas Caley fight here. And I'm going to take the Ohio Bobcats to win their first MAC championship since 1968. Give me them on the money line at plus 122. I believe that is over at Caesars. And you bring up that game being more lopsided than it was, but Miami only outgained Ohio. Let's see, I'm going to get confused. Miami of Ohio versus Ohio. They only outgained Ohio by 48 yards in that game. Most of it was on the ground. What was the big cause of that loss? There was a couple of explosive plays that the Bobcats gave up in that game, and that was the difference for the Red Hawks. So can they limit the explosives? I think so. I don't think you also in your column, you mentioned Brett Gabbert being the veteran quarterback who's won this before and knows what to do. He's
not won this before. He's angry because
he was injured
last season. Sorry. That's what I was writing.
Sorry. So I didn't read that closely. There you go. You caught me. He's not great. Like he's a fine MAC quarterback, but he's not great. 7.9 yards per attempt, 57% completion percentage, and he throws a lot of picks. He had thrown 3 in the last 2 weeks. I think that this Bobcats defense can take advantage of that. And shout out to Tim Albin this year. What he's done is awesome. I thought this was going to be a huge step back season for them, losing Curtis Rourke. They did not. They're playing well right now. That last loss was obviously against Miami of Ohio, but they're playing well. 5-0 straight up and ATS in the last 5 games. Obviously, the competition wasn't great, but they're getting the job done. One thing you also mentioned in your article was that they're is
this what it feels like when you read? Is this what it feels like when you pay attention to what's going on?
Is
this what it feels like when you do your job?
Anyways, the Red Hawks there, they also played a bunch of poor teams. You did note that as well, but they didn't cover in their big games. So while their margin was good, they didn't cover those big spreads. And actually, Ohio has done a better job of covering the big spreads this season. So I don't think that margin matters as much as you noted. And so, yeah, give me the Bobcats here. They're going to get that revenge. Plus 122. Let's go. Let's go, Bobcats.
I will sit here and take the abuse and quietly point out that in my column, I took Miami of Ohio at neg 122, and that is now up to neg 135 or neg 140.
There you
So
go.
my column is looking smarter. At least you're getting a better number, Andrew.
I am
happy
getting
for
a
you.
better number, so we'll say that.
The doubt here is painful and personal, I tell you. There will be more doubt next season when we have to consider UMass MAC futures in 2025.
Well, I feel like the MAC is a good landing spot for UMass, right? Like they could maybe get
good as a word choice.
It seems like a fit. I don't know. I think that they could maybe get a win. Like they get to play Akron and
I think the
and Penn
FCS
State.
would be a good landing spot for UMass.
Oh well, like they're not there yet, and I think the number 134 is going up next year, not going down. So
yeah, I don't know. The corporate knows that. We will have to do a slight rebranding to 136 next season. Anyway. Oh, we do have other people agreeing with me that can't wait for UMass. Say if they can't go backward. That's the UMass encouragement. They can't get worse. It can always get worse. Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship.
Let's go, big
game.
One.
This is indeed a big one. One could argue the biggest game of the day. We know where Anthony Edwards stands. In case anyone missed this last night, I am pulling it up on my computer. We have Texas as a 2.5-point favorite, 50.5-point total. And yes, Andrew, I am going to trumpet the Timberwolves real quick. Anthony Edwards, post-game interview last night.
Dogs. It's Texas. Do you have a message? Do you have a message for your? I know you do, but do you have a message for that team? I want to hear it. What's your pep talk?
Hey, Carson Beck, do your MFing thing, boy. You hear me? Do your thing. Because we're going to see him again in the SEC championship, baby.
That was really good censoring. I'm really proud of you right now. Thank you so much. Anthony Edwards was.
Do you know what Carson Beck's MFing thing is? It's playing really MFing bad. Like he stinks. Right? Like I don't know. Like he's the reason why this Georgia team is vulnerable and could definitely lose this game to Texas. He's thrown as many picks as interceptions in SEC play. People kind of forget about that because he threw like 9 touchdown passes the last week, aided by overtime against Georgia Tech. And then against, who did they play the week? Was it Citadel or someone random like that? Who did they play the week before? Oh, UMass. UMass. Sorry, it was UMass. Shout out to UMass, who put up 21 points against Georgia in that game. I don't know. Like I know he's cheering on his alma mater there, but man, Carson Beck. Nah, he ain't it right now for me. And without having those, like, I can transition into a proper candidate because they don't have those playmakers right now. That they don't have those Brock Bowers. They don't have those Lad McConkeys for him to rely on. It looks tough for Georgia right now. More shout outs to Douglas Farmer here. I read your work. They took Georgia's best punch. Texas did in that game.
I wrote that exact phrase.
You did write that. See, look, I can read. I can, despite what the naysayers might say, I can read. And it's correct. I totally agree that Texas, to me, looks like a legitimate. We talked about this on Tuesday. I still think Georgia can win the national championship, but just because of the state of college football, that's not a compliment to Georgia in any way. It is more of this field is wide open to me. But when you want to talk about a legitimate title contender, that is Texas.
I don't want to go against Anthony Edwards. He's right there. He's right there. That's Anthony Edwards, right? That's Anthony Edwards right there. And that's Anthony Edwards right there. I don't want to go against my Timberwolves hero, but I am here with a best bet on Texas, neg 3. Neg 105 at BetMGM. I think Georgia's played one quality half all season. I think Georgia running up the score on Tennessee is the same as me running up the score on my 12-year-old nephew in a game of pickup basketball. Nobody cares. You don't learn anything in what Kirby Smart does to Josh Heupel. I think Georgia played well that first half against Austin, and then things almost got out of hand on Georgia. Texas has only improved since then. Their last 5 opponents, Vanderbilt and Florida, exceeded their team totals in garbage time. Remove those garbage time touchdowns, include Vanderbilt pushing its team total. And they've held 5 opponents to 0-4 against team totals, more than a field goal better than Vegas expectations. Texas is getting better. Georgia peaked in Austin 6 weeks ago. I'm taking Texas neg 3. I
Do
don't like
you
going
want
against
2.5?
Anthony Edwards, but I like the value.
What did you bet at minus
Um,
105? You can get 2.5 at minus 115.
I'd rather than like 3 at like 105.
Okay, I'm not. We have a bit of a curse on the show when we agree on something, so I'm not gonna make this a best bet, but I will make a comment that I will be making a personal sprinkle on Texas minus 2.5 at minus 115 as well. Look, I see you inhaled deeply there, but that's not a best bet. But I am gonna have a personal wager on Texas there. I really think that this defense is an underrated unit, 22nd in success rate. Really, really like how they match up against Georgia here. And I think that they're going to control the game. Another thing I don't hate in this game, really quickly, is an Arch Manning touchdown. I think we're going to see some more packages for him in this game. We saw them do that against, and we're going to lose a little value because he did score against Texas A&M last week. But I still think you can have some fun backing him to score an anytime touchdown. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see it now on the board for Bet365. I was going to see if I could find it. I was at
Joe Everett found it at plus 285.
Plus 285. Thank you very much. I don't hate that at all because in the red zone, they're going to have packages for him. We've seen teams like Alabama and Mississippi rush the ball with Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart effectively against this Georgia defense. I can see Texas having some and Sark cooking some stuff up for Arch in this one. Don't hate that play at all.
I appreciate you not joining me on the bet. I feel more comfortable when you and I go head to head than when we agree, because we have never gotten a bet that we publicly agreed on correctly. So I appreciate you not doing that. Let's grab some comments here before we go through the final 3 games. Brett Joseph is a little bit upset with me for mentioning South Dakota State and Montana and then not actually discussing it. So I will rectify that real quick.
21 points. That's a lot of points.
21.5 home favorite, and I'm taking South Dakota State 21.5 point home favorite. It's been a letdown year for Montana. Sure, still in the playoffs. How much of a letdown year? It's been a letdown year for Montana, and South Dakota State wants to start building momentum ASAP because they are on the same side of the bracket as North Dakota State. The Dakota Marker Part 2 is not going to be the national championship game. They need to be cooking with gas long before then. I'm taking South Dakota State, neg 21.5. I've seen that at even money.
There you go. Look at that. Some FCS value for you guys.
I try. I do my best. Tyler Krennick must have been in our group chat last night because producer Jameson wanted to discuss the Heisman, and I told him to leave me alone. Should we be giving Ashton Jeanty the Heisman? I'm not going to look up the odds. I'm sure he's still plus 800-900, if not greater. Should it be going to Ashton Jeanty instead of Travis Hunter?
I don't know. I don't know who deserves it this year. It's weird. Give it to Bryson Daly. Go Bryson Daly from Army, who leads, who has as many touchdowns as Ashton Jeanty does. That's I don't know. It's what Travis Hunter is doing is really impressive. Obviously, he's a deserving winner. We went on early. I have to eat some crow, obviously, because I said don't bet Travis Hunter to win the Heisman, because I thought the losses would negate that. But there hasn't been a quarterback that has really separated themselves from the pack. I still think Cam Ward deserves a lot of credit for not only putting up those great numbers, but doing so in fighting his own head coach, Mario Cristobal, every step of the way. Like, to do that and still have Mario Cristobal as your head coach, that should be Heisman worthy, I think. I don't know. But yeah, I think that the narrative is pretty driven right now for it to be Hunter. I don't know. Jeanty is obviously a huge factor in Boise State being where they are, and they're going to be in the playoff. So I think there's probably a little value with him just at the number, and his team has been more successful, and he looks like the most out. So there was that stat last night they pulled up where it was like rushes of 50 yards or more, and he has 12 of them.
He's got 13 and
now.
Army, like Navy, and no,
it was
Army or Navy. I think it was Navy and Notre Dame each have 7.
Have 7 as a team. Like that's pretty impressive stuff.
I will say to Tyler arguing that switch them in Colorado is unbeaten. I don't know, because remember how bad Colorado's offensive line was to start the year? They don't beat Nebraska. They probably don't beat Kansas State, even with him, because Boise State's offensive line is far and away better than Colorado's. I just want to put a little bit of brakes on that sentiment right there. That, let's see here. We will get into those other comments, the other two that I've set aside later. Bring on more comments. Today's show is not going to be that long. We have only 6 games. So bring on some more comments. We will get to more later. And we should also mention, Andrew, there wasn't that much Tuesday value this week. It's almost like an NFL-esque week. We have more data than ever. There were only 6 games. It's on Saturday. Honestly, the work this week was kind of boring for me. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't the usual joy of digging through dozens of games looking for angles. Is this why our colleague Jason Logan is always in a lousy mood? Is this why all his work chats to us are always so mean? Because he's like, it's this miserable to handicap the NFL?
I would assume so, right? It's
there's no way
you're handicapping games with totals in the between 30s and like they have Army Navy totals in a handful of games every week. Like, what's the fun in that?
Their total spectrum. There was a few weeks where I ran these numbers. The NFL total spectrum is basically 32.5 to 48.5, whereas we're cooking between 32.5 and 72.5.
Yeah, we're the more entertaining product. Of course we are. We're having more fun. Sorry, Jay. Come over to
I'm not sorry, Jason. And if I apologize to you, you would know it is not sincere. That Tuesday show continues to be our strength, which is why we will continue recording it for much of December. Find College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms so you know when that Tuesday episode previewing the playoff, previewing bowl games is live, and you can enjoy that value all of December. Should we continue to the Sun Belt, where we already have Carlos Bilbao wondering, is it Raging Cajuns over Marshall? Somebody didn't tune in to the Tuesday show. It's okay. Marshall is now a 6-point underdog in the 7:30 kick on ESPN. This is a home game for Louisiana, formerly known as Louisiana Lafayette.
So you can break down for him that you got a little value here. Let's hear it.
You know, here I was just saying there's not that much Tuesday value. And look at that. I had Louisiana at 5.5 as a Tuesday bet. Is now a 6-point favorite. I don't think that is only because it increasingly looks like Marshall head coach Charles Huff has already taken a head coaching job at Southern Miss, which is at best described as a lateral move. But that has probably only helped my cause. And yes, folks, possible Sun Belt champion Marshall is on such bad terms with his head coach that he's leaving. Head coaches don't usually have expiring contracts. That is how long this rift has existed, for a full-blown year. It is now, this dirty laundry is being aired very publicly, and I don't think that is your ideal situation going on the road for a conference championship game.
Yeah, but if there is one little caveat to that, maybe he doesn't care about A.J. Turner anymore, and he just feeds him the rock all game long, and he hits my Tuesday bet of 60-plus yards rushing against what is a questionable Raging Cajuns defense. I do agree that I think Louisiana gets the job done in this one when all is said and done, but hopefully he hands the rock to Turner a bunch in this one. I took 60-plus yards at plus 160 earlier in the weekend. The Raging Cajuns rank 132nd in success rate against the rush this season.
It is real important to remember that many college football fans think the transfer portal is unfair and has ruined college football. I believe Charles Huff will be transferring tomorrow with no penalties to his eligibility or his compensation. It's the transfer portal, Andrew. It's the transfer portal that's ruining college football.
Yeah, of course, right? No, coaches have been doing this forever, and this is why I've always been a supporter of paying these athletes who are not only giving these coaches huge amounts of money, but these schools, people making so much money off them. Yes, give them everything they deserve here until there was a restriction on coaches doing something like this. They're going into kids' houses and being like, hey, I'm going to be here for your son for 4 years. And there's bold-faced lying. And
just at Tommy Tuberville. If you're going to discuss Tommy Tuberville like that, just put the at on Tommy Tuberville. Come on now. The man left dinner with a recruit without paying the tab.
Oh, my goodness. But until there's restrictions on head coaches, I want everyone to be quiet about guys hopping in the transfer portal. If anything, people want to say it makes college football worse. but I think we're seeing guys stay in college football, especially quarterbacks. We get better quarterback play. Cam Ward is not in the NFL right now because Miami gave him a bunch of money to stay, and we're going to see that in the future. Like, yeah, he's not going to be on the same team all 5 years generally, but we're going to see better quarterback play for longer in college football because of these NIL deals, and that's only a good thing.
Folks, you can hear him getting ready right now to back Cam Rising in 2025.
No, not Cam Rising. I do like Cam Ward to be the first quarterback selected in the NFL draft, though.
That's not a conversation I will indulge in for a moment because I hate the
love
NFL
draft
as
betting.
well. Anyway, the ACC Championship is tonight at 8 Eastern on ABC. SMU, a 2.5-point favorite in its first year in the conference. Credit to the Mustangs. Pony on up, except on Tuesday I took the Clemson money line, plus 115.
Where Cam Ward
now
won't
as
be.
high as plus 120. What was that?
Where Cam Ward won't be, the ACC title game.
He's got no one to blame but himself and his head coach.
Maybe Mario Cristobal.
I look at this game, and more, I like Clemson. I think one of these teams is going to play not to lose. One of these teams cannot risk a blowout loss. That's SMU. SMU may or may not, but very well could still get in the playoff in a close loss. Clemson knows it's got to go all out, throw the kitchen sink at them, turnover causing defense. Cade Klubnik's shown off some playmaking ability this year. SMU playing to keep this game close could backfire badly. I really, really like my Clemson play more and more.
Okay, so I like that line of thinking. Obviously, I think Clemson is the more talented team in terms of roster. They have obviously a national championship experience head coach. But that thought that SMU is not going to play to lose leads me to think that we're going to have a low scoring first half. And I was batting this around, so I'm going to bet it now. I want another bet on this game. So I'm going under 27.5 in the first half. Sorry. Oh, look at you. You had it there. And I actually have a better number than that, minus 105 now. You can get it at even money, which is part of the reason why I'm taking it. But it is still at Caesars. I think Circa has that number as well. So even money on the under 27.5 in the first half. Clemson's offense has not been good recently. They have scored, I believe, 24 points or fewer in their last 4 FBS games. 21 versus Louisville, 24 versus Virginia Tech, 24 versus Pitt, and just 14 last week against South Carolina. And in games against, in games they've struggled, South Carolina, Georgia earlier in the season. What do those teams have in common, right? They have great defensive lines. SMU has a very good, like, I won't put them on elite level, but that's a very good defensive front. And they rank 30th in the country against FBS teams in sack rate. So they are going to be able to put some pressure on the Clemson pass game, at least early on. And then you mentioned it. I think that running the football and clock control, like you said, not to lose. That's going to be, SMU is going to want to control that clock and try to make this game as short as possible. That all sounds like an under, at least early to me. Under 27.5 in the first half.
It wouldn't be a good College Football 134 show if you didn't have a first half under somewhere. It also would not be a good College Football 134 show if we did not have somebody coming in the comments with the absolute best bet of the day. And yes, Neg 1,000 on Dabo Swinney dropping a little bit. I guess you shouldn't have counted out little Clemson if they win the ACC championship game.
Yeah, of course. Well, like, whatever, Dabo. Like, come on, get out of here. I don't know what to do with you anymore.
I do want 2 answers out of you. I want definitive answers out of you. 2 questions, very much related. I've been loud and vocal with my answers for weeks. Anybody who has tuned in at any point in November knows where I stand. If SMU loses this game closely, let's say it's a genuine 1-possession game, would you want SMU or Alabama in the playoff? Question number 2, who would you expect the committee to put in the playoff, SMU or Alabama?
SMU, Bama.
SMU is who you want. Bama is who you expect the committee to cave to.
If it's
a genuine, I'm not saying garbage time. This is a genuine 27-23 Clemson victory. Just making up a number there for the conversation.
I think SMU deserves to be there if it is a close game, obviously. I'd lean towards Bama, but I wouldn't be shocked if they like. We had that situation where TCU lost the Big 12 championship game a few years ago to Kansas State, and they kept them. Like there was a bunch of debate about whether or not they should still be in the game, and it was a close game in overtime, obviously, and they kept them in the game, and then they went on to upset Michigan, obviously. So, I think the brand name will win out in the end because it's college football and that's what they do.
I'm going to be so angry.
I know. Because like, it's not like this is like a deserving Bama team that's had some tough losses. Like, no, you got stomped by Vandy on the road like that. Like, I just can't. Like, it's going to be really infuriating. I don't want those 3-loss teams in there. I don't even think Georgia deserves to be there really if they lose again. Give me Army. Come on, give me Army in the college football playoff. Let's do it. I know. I'm a little extreme there, but man,
I want that. I want that for the chaos of my God. I'd be on the Navy money line next week if Army was in the playoff. I would shove a mortgage payment across the window on the Navy money line next week.
I don't want to divert too much here, but this is our last Saturday show. Let's divert a little bit.
We've only one game left to discuss.
Is there a situation like? Would there ever be a situation? Say Army beat Notre Dame this year. Say they've beaten Notre Dame. Yes, they would be in the college football playoff over Boise State right now if they had beaten Notre Dame. But is there a situation we could have, like, say they were like trending? Would they ever have to delay the announcement for the Army?
They have
Navy
said
game?
They will not. They have said explicitly that game will simply not be factored in.
But what if like Navy blew them out or something like that?
That's why the value would exist of just Navy's
goodness.
going to do the funniest thing possible. It's never going to be a conversation. Like, this was the best Army offense we've seen in decades, and Notre Dame.
Bryson Daly should be back.
Notre Dame, no, he's done. He's a
Is
senior.
He done? Oh, I thought he was a junior. Okay, my bad.
He's a senior, and this is Army. They don't do 5th years. He's done.
I know.
It's a fun hypothetical, and it's entertaining to think about the Navy money line next week in that situation. Hey, folks, remember, tune in on Tuesdays on your podcast feed, College Football 134, because you know very well that one Andrew Caley will have an Army-Navy monologue that I am unable to clip shortly enough to put into at least 1 or 2 social media videos.
I think we should do it right now.
No, we should not. No, we should not.
Just very give me 1 second. One moment. It's on the board already. 42.5 is the total. It'll be the highest total in this game in years. Like, it's obviously going to dip. It's not going to be 42.5 come Tuesday. It's not going to be 42.5. It's not going to be 38.5 next Saturday. It's not. So I'm going to bet the under 42.5 right now. Army Navy.
Hey, proud of you. That was only 19 seconds. Penn State, Oregon. Oregon, a 3.5-point favorite. 8 Eastern on CBS. Total of 50.5. This game is in Indianapolis in the Dome. I look at this and I think very strongly this game's going to get loose. This game's going to get out there. It's 2 pretty good quarterbacks. I know you have your Drew Aller concerns, but he's done pretty well this season. He has averaged 9.4 yards per attempt while throwing only 5 interceptions. Think about those 2 things together. There is more offense here that has not been tapped. Oregon has not looked great in recent weeks. They've looked fine. They haven't needed to do a whole lot. November has been a lull. I think Oregon is going to come out here today and say, you know what, we need to reestablish our potency before the college football playoff. We need to know what we have cooking, what is working right now. I think Oregon's going to dial it up, and Andy Kotelnicki, Penn State offensive coordinator, rumored for the West Virginia job, is going to be glad to match it. Andrew, maybe my favorite play of the week is over 50.5 in the Big Ten title game. I think this game, more than any other game, could get loose. These teams have nothing to lose. These are the 2 teams that we know are in, without a worry, are in the top 2/3 of the bracket. Penn State, you're hosting a game no matter how this game goes. Like, this game is nobody here has anything to lose, only things to gain. They're going to play loose, and it's going to get fun.
Yeah, well, they won't host a game if they win. They'll be in a bowl game on a neutral site. But yeah, and I guess you can make the case that they might not go full bore with the playbooks in this one because maybe they'll play each other. Cut loose, he says. I don't know. Like you said, like I wanted to believe in Drew Aller, and like yeah, but he's only like you said his yards per attempt. It was just 7.4 against Ohio State, and he went 12 of 20 passing for 146 yards. You know where all those yards came from? Just dumping the ball off to Nick Singleton, and like it was literally just dump offs because Ohio State was getting there so fast, and and then Singleton made some guys miss, and he accounted for I think like 54 of those yards just on his legs alone. So that 7.4 is even elevated even more. Yeah, I don't see that as much, but I hope you win your bet there, buddy. I obviously took the Ducks -3.5 for many of those reasons earlier in the week, but I'm going to add to it because I found a number that I find disrespectful to one Mr. Dylan Gabriel. Shout out for cashing our season-long yardage prop for him last week. He did just enough before they pulled him there, get through for about 200 and some yards. We needed 185, and he got there to cash his season-long passing yards prop. His passing yardage prop for this game is 235.5. He's done his best work in games where they've needed him. Like he threw for over 341 against Ohio State, 294 against Michigan. And I know this is a good Penn State pass defense, but they are a little vulnerable to the run. What you do is you spread. This is what Ohio State did with Quinshon Judkins. You spread, you run out a bunch of wide receivers, spread them out, and then you run the ball up the middle. And that's what Quinshon Judkins did it. And was very effective on it. I think Jordan James can do that. And then it's not Will Howard back there throwing for Oregon. It's friggin' Dylan Gabriel, who I think is one of the best college football quarterbacks in the country. He will very much. You think it's going to get loose? Then this is a bet that you have to back. Like this is Dylan Gabriel easily going over 235.5 passing yards, -114 at FanDuel. I really love this play here today. Like I said, he does his best work when the Ducks need him the most. They're going to let him huck it all over the yard today.
I am trying to find
Sorry if I got
my
impassioned.
hard copy of my Big Ten preview because I included in my corporate mandated same game parlay over 249.5 for Dylan Gabriel. And I'm trying I write down on the hard copy what there it is. Look what I found. Yes, folks, hard copies. I got that at +124 if I had not been dealing with the same game parlay. So that's in agreement with you. And he did that against Ohio State. He had an 80% completion rate. And no, that was Will Howard, an 80% completion rate. But that is also why I think this game is going to get loose because when Oregon dials it up, the opponent has to match them. And that will only further Dylan Gabriel's incentives to just keep throwing the ball.
Yeah, if you want to get a little spicy with it too, you can get 250 at passing yards at +135. 275 is +230. Like you want to go crazy, 300 is 4-1.
I like that thought. We are in alignment on there. And I will note, just like you may or may not have wanted to take the Texas -2.5 today, I very much wanted to take the Oregon -3.5 on Tuesday and did not because you and I have never successfully cashed a bet where we have the same bet on the show. Before we get out of here, I've got at least 2 comments to discuss. We have Jared Hollinger. I think Jared might have some faulty numbers here. Texas had 26 first downs against A&M with only 17 points. He's looking at their red zone scoring. I pulled that up. I've got Texas at an 82% touchdown rate in the red zone, a 69% red zone scoring rate. That's top 30 in the country. And if you go look at Parker's quality possession points rates, Texas scores 4.2 points per quality possession. That's number 25 in the country. I'm not worried about Texas's red zone scoring like I was last season.
Yeah, I'm really. I think when you include Arch Manning being used more in the red zone here too, exactly. that increases their chances of being effective there. And I don't know I just really like Texas. Like they're probably my national championship pick at this point in the season.
I think a lot depends on Quinn Ewers' health, but he has been looking better. We will get a better idea on that today. Obviously, every data point helps.
Sorry,
and that similar note. similar note, we had Carlos Bilbao ask, what's the deal with Bama? Are they really giving in and playing versus Notre Dame? You said what you expect the committee to do is give in to Bama. I don't think they're playing Notre Dame. I think Penn State losing today would knock Penn State back behind Ohio State. Notre Dame gets to 5 in the Big 12 champion. That is my expectation, and I see value there if you're looking at a path forward in the playoffs.
Yeah, Yeah, they can get in. We talked about this. They're definitely on the table, and we saw that the committee is going to keep them Were they 11th still? Is that what it was? Or
Bama was 12.
12, sorry.
And that meant that one team would jump them guaranteed in the Big 12. Excuse me, you're correct. They were 11. One team jumps them in the Big 12, so they're still in the top 12.
Yeah.
If Clemson jumps them, and that's where the SMU competition begins.
And they just like sandbag South Carolina there. Like you were wondering if they maybe put them ahead of Mississippi at this point and maybe put them right behind Alabama. Like I think South Carolina is the better football team at this point than Alabama is, right? Like they have the better defense. They have a quarterback who is not as electric, but pretty close to Jalen Milroe right now. And they've been the much more consistent football team. And yeah, so I would love to hear a case for South Carolina. I'd much rather see South Carolina in right now than Alabama.
Andrew, if this conversation was only about recency bias, we would have Florida in the playoff. Hi, producer Jameson. You didn't see it coming today, but I found a way to work it in. If it was all about recency bias, Florida would be in the playoff. So let's not put too much stock into the recency bias. Look at him forgetting he's on the corporate account by calling us a Florida pod.
Go DJ Lagway. That's Florida is a team to look at for next year for sure.
That should do it for us before we go too far off the rails. Andrew, how about you recap your bets? I will recap mine and remind folks, we are going to be recording all of December. We have 2 shows planned before the first round of the playoff. We have 2 more shows planned before the quarterfinals. We will be live a couple hours before the national championship game on January 20th. Recap those bets, Andrew. Let's get out of here before much longer.
Okay, so from Tuesday, we've already cashed Darian Mensah over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Iowa State, Arizona State over 50.5 in the Big 12 championship. Georgia, Texas under 49.5 in the SEC championship. Marshall running back AJ Turner, please run him into the ground. Charles Huff, 60+ rushing yards at +160. Oregon minus 3.5 against Penn State in the Big 10 championship. And from today, we're going Arizona State quarterback Sam Leavitt over 1.5 passing touchdowns +140. I'm going on the Ohio money line at +122. We're going to Clemson, SMU under 27.5 in the first half. That's even money. And we're closing out with Oregon QB Dylan Gabriel over 235.5 passing yards at -114.
From Tuesday, I am 1-1, cashing Jacksonville State in Egg 4, losing the double down on UNLV at +160. I have today Louisiana in Egg 5.5. Hey, look, Tuesday value. Clemson money line +115 against SMU. And from today, I have Iowa State +1.5, Texas Neg 3, and the Big 10 over 50.5. Tyler, we appreciate you showing up each and every Saturday and helping us out throughout the weeks. We appreciate all of our viewers, all of our listeners, all of our subscribers. And remember, folks, we are going to keep going all of December. So go find College Football 134 on your podcast feeds. Like and subscribe to the Covers YouTube channel. We will record again on Tuesday because in my heart, I believe I am going to sleep very late next Saturday morning after I spend all of Friday. Oh, what's that? I shouldn't finish that sentence. Good